Okay, here's a short video for problems 283B and D. The first one, part B here, is a parallelogram. And based on the work earlier in this lesson, we saw that you can always cut and move a piece of a parallelogram to turn it into a rectangle, which tells us the area of a parallelogram is the same as the area of a rectangle, and that is just base times the height. Okay, the height is always a straight line down to your base. Okay, so that tells me the height here is 14 and that the base here is 26. And when I do this multiplication, let me grab my calculator because I am bad with mental math. We have 26 times 14, and that's going to give me 364 meters. That's really sloppy. Let's write it in here. 364 meters as my area of this parallelogram. Again, reinforcing the idea that we use the same formula for parallelograms as we do with rectangles. Okay? Part D here, we have a trapezoid. So I'm actually going to hop back and do a little explanation of how we derive the formula here for a trapezoid. So we hop back to this question here. By rotating it 90 degrees, by rotating the shape 180 degrees and sliding it over, we end up with a parallelogram. And we just said that the area of a parallelogram is base times height. Okay? So we look at this and we say, well, my base, if we look at this entire parallelogram, my base is really B2 and B1. It's this entire thing. And so we say that our base is B1 plus B2, because we're going to use this equation for a parallelogram, but we're going to make it work for our trapezoid. And you have B1 plus B2, that's my base. My height is still my height in this parallelogram, so it's times your height. And then at the way end here, so we just use these, we use this long base and this height. We find the area of this in this entire parallelogram. And then we don't want the entire parallelogram, we just want half of it. We want the real thing, not this imaginary added on part that we created. And so to get half of it, we do B1 plus B2 times the height, get the whole thing, and we divide it by 2 to cut it in half. Okay, so this equation, I know it's written out kind of poorly here. I probably could use my math notes box. But we're going to use that to calculate the area of this parallelogram in part D. And so again, we have B1 plus B2. We do that first, then we multiply it by the height, and we divide the whole thing by 2. So B1 is 6, B2 is 21, so that gives me, when I add them together, a base of 27. Multiply by that height, that is 8, and we divide that by 2 to come up with our answer. So 27 times 8 gives me 216. I divide it by 2, and that gives me an answer of 108 feet. Ooh, that's an ugly 8. Let's change that. 108 feet. Okay, so my answer there is 108, and I hope that explanation of where we're deriving the formula from works. But just remember, now that we've derived that formula, we can use it anytime. So B1 plus B2 times the height divided by 2 is always going to give us the area of our trapezoid. Okay, I hope this video has been helpful.